Hey everyone, welcome to Gadgets with Gurman. This is a super exciting episode. I have a product here that I've been waiting, really wanting to get my hands on for some time. We actually have two of them. You can see here, this is Andy Rubin's Essential phone. It's a new phone, the first one coming from his new hardware and AI software company. We had a big story out this morning, interviewing Andy Rubin, talking about the plans for the phone. But today we want to jump in and review the phone and walk you through it. You can see the phones here in the monitor. Here are the backs. Here's the camera attachment that we'll dive into a little bit later. We'll have a full demo of that via Chromecast streaming through Android. But first, for my takeaway, let me turn the screen on for this. I love the screen. I think the screen is awesome. It's really bright. It's 500 nits. It's really crisp, really clear, but it's LCD. It's not OLED. You can't really tell. It just looks so good. The first time I was using it, I thought it was an OLED screen because it looked so great. But you know, when you compare it to a phone with OLED, you can see the differences. And you can see the bezels starting there. You can see how slim they are. And you know, first to the back here, something we have to know, it's a ceramic back, but it really picks up fingerprints, as you can see. It's sort of like a jet black iPhone 7 Plus. I have a few scratches on the bottom here, so it really picks up fingerprints, but there's also a glossy white and a matte white version in the works. So let's zoom in here into the monitor and take a closer look at that. And you can see there's the cameras on the back here, the fingerprint sensor. But I want to dive into the screen a little bit more. And you can see the screen actually has rounded corners, which is pretty unique. The current iPhone doesn't have rounded corners. It's very squared off. It's sort of unique for this form factor. And the big deal here is this is a 5.7-inch screen, and the only thick bezel is at the bottom here. And I sort of want to compare it to a few other phones on the market or some concept phones that are quite similar. So you can see this is the S7, the Galaxy S7, and it has very slim bezels at the top and the bottom, but on the side it curves in. On this phone, the Essential phone, it's pretty much bezel-less except the bottom. And that's mostly similar to this Xiaomi phone, right? This phone is a concept phone. It's called the Mix. It's a very big phone. It's very nice. It has a bigger than 6-inch screen. And you can see this also has very slim bezels, but it has this big notch at the bottom to hold the camera. This whole, this little chin, it's a bit taller than the chin on the Essential phone. And you can see there's this notch in the top of the screen. It's actually touch sensitive. Andy Rubin was showing me this, so this is actually touch sensitive. It's not a full cutout, so somehow they have the touch panel working with that. So I think this is the most similar phone in terms of being bezel-less until the iPhone 8 comes out, of course. But it does have this big chin on the bottom. And the Essential is hitting the market now this month, already on pre-order. This phone is still a concept phone, and it's not really on the market. And in terms of my usage, the notch here, a lot of people have been asking me, does it disrupt usage? No, it doesn't disrupt usage. No matter what app you go into, no matter what you're doing on this thing, you just really ignore it. You can pull down the notification tray. You don't really notice it. It doesn't interrupt anything. And they sort of move here we can go to a tech meme here. They sort of move the status bar up top to fit all of those different widgets that you might want, the battery, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the antenna information, the time. So it really covers the notch. They blend it in with a black background. It looks great. I haven't had issues with that at all. The ceramic back, I like it a lot. It feels really premium. This phone makes my iPhone 7 Plus. I have the jet black one, so it's a little glossy and it feels a little plasticky even though it's metal. This feels really high-end. It makes my iPhone feel old. When I hold it, I mean, just having a bezel-less design and this big screen in the smaller form factor, it looks really great. A couple downsides, however, I don't like the fingerprint scanners on the back. There is no, next generation authentication here. There's no facial scanning, iris scanning. The iPhone 8, of course, as reported, is going to have the 3D sensor to scan your face. So it's going to be a little bit outdated in terms of authenticating. Obviously, you can put a password in the standard Android unlock, and you can see the fingerprint scanner here. Let me try to get the light on it. You can see it right there. It's that circular thing. It's very similar to a Google Pixel. Now, the cameras on the back, right? The camera is a key part of phones right now, right? This phone, it's getting an update this week to take HDR photography, but I want to open the camera app here and show you what the functionality is for the camera. So, open the camera And you can see I have the 360 attachment. Let me, okay, a little bug here. Let me close this. The camera. Okay, you can see it has, an auto mode, and then has a mono mode, which sort of changes it to a black and white, and a slow-mo mode. And the way it does this is that the dual camera on the back actually captures color differently. So one captures in black and white, and one captures in pure color, and the auto mode merges it for the photo to look really nice, but it does not have the depth effect, the effects like panorama that the iPhone has and other Android phones have. So it's a little basic in that regard, but it is getting a software update with HDR. And the big deal here is this camera attachment that we have on this other essential phone right here, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, I really wish that it would have more functionality, more camera features, but of course there's probably apps on the App Store that you can use to enhance the camera's functionality. Now, the camera is attached through this magnetic sensor here. So this is one accessory. This is the 4K camera. It's about 50 bucks, or if you buy it with the phone combined, or a little bit more if you buy it separately. But Sprint is offering it a few dollars a month extra on top of your phone leasing plan, which we'll get into at the end. So you connect it with the magnet here, and it powers it on. The power is through the phone. And this magnet's also going to be used for other accessories. They're working on a car accessory, a 3D laser scanning accessory. Andy Rubin showed us. You can read more about that in our story. And the camera, the 4K camera, is what's on the market now. Their second accessory is going to be an inductive charging dock for sort of wirelessly charging the device. And we have a lot of questions coming in here about the phone. Does it feel heavy? That's a good question. It feels a little bit heavy. I mean, comparing it to the iPhone 7 Plus, it definitely feels a little bit heavier. But it doesn't feel too heavy or anything. You sort of get used to it. Of course, it's even heavier if you have two of them. You're stacking them on top, so I would recommend only carrying one of them. But it is a very premium phone. It's made out of titanium on the sides. It looks really great. It is quite a bit heavier compared to the S7, the S7 Plus, and this Xiaomi concept phone. But you can really feel the quality in the phone. Unfortunately, that doesn't extend to the interface, and we'll dive a little bit into that right now. I sort of want to jump in to this interface here, so I'm going to connect this other unit we have here to this Chromecast behind me. Okay, I'm just loading it up here. Okay, cool. So we have this Chromecast here, and you can get a better look at the interface. So this is, hold on. There we go. So this is the, hold on, just takes a second. Sorry, over the Wi-Fi network, it just takes a second to load the Chromecast. There we go. Okay, so this is the essential interface here. You can see the home screen. Okay, it's getting a little sluggish here. Okay, let's move back to the normal view and take a look here. So this is, let me dive into the interface. And you can see that this is stock Android. This is Google Pixel Android. It's actually the same exact operating system that runs on the Google Pixel. In fact, when I used an early version of this, the boot screen actually said Pixel on this. So it's core Android. I've installed some apps on here, as you can see, and it's normal Android. If you have a Google Pixel, you're coming from a Pixel, it's going to look exactly the same. And it's really unfortunate that a phone made by Andy Rubin, the person who co-created Android, the person who created Danger, who created the Sidekick before it was bought by Sharp and Microsoft and became part of T-Mobile, to not have any special sauce here on the software. He tells us it's coming later. There's going to be all sorts of AI-infused operating system features to be able to sort of know and create a virtual you. So he gave us lots of examples in terms of, the phone can learn about you and people start texting you. It'll be able to reply for you, all sorts of cool stuff. But it's unfortunate that day one doesn't have that functionality. Now, we have another question coming in here. Is it as fast and stable as the iPhone fingerprint scanner? It's a little bit slower. I actually tested this compared to the fingerprint scanner on the iPhone 7 Plus. That's because the iPhone 7 Plus has that faster sensor. It's optimized by Apple. Apple actually made the sensor and the software together. Android phones, obviously, it's a bunch of parts, different fingerprint sensors and other components mashed together. It is produced by Foxconn as well, the same manufacturer of the iPhone. It is good quality. You're not going to have a bad time with it. It's just not as fast. But we're talking about fingerprint sensors here, so we're only talking about milliseconds in terms of differences. Now, I want to dive back into this 4K camera, and I'm going to attach it right now. And you can see the interface when you attach the camera. I'm going to open the camera app. And it turns on the 360-degree camera. And you can see the interface here. So I'm going to just take a picture here of our studio in front. Okay, and I took that picture. And now you can see it's a 360-degree picture. You can see everything in here. You can see me. There's me. Hi, everyone. My Mac there. So that's a 360-degree photo. It could take video as well. It's very cool. It's very fast. I really think it's a great upgrade. It's one of the main points of this phone. The main selling point of the phone is this magnet on the back to be able to increase functionality over time. And this 4K camera is the first accessory. When you attach it, and obviously this is, I have to know, it's a prototype, it makes a little bit of a buzzing sound, and I think if you hold it up to your ear, you can only hear it. And I think that's because of the power needed to drive the 4K stuff. It has its own Qualcomm chip in here, so it's a pretty advanced accessory in its own right. Another question coming in here, what is the one feature that should make me want to buy this? What's the distinguishing factor? That's a really good question. The distinguishing factor here is the display, the bezel-less screen, that little notch here, this overall design, the ceramic back, the titanium. It feels super premium. And to answer another question, at $700, getting that premium feature set, that core Android, that root plain Android, is a great deal, especially in light of the iPhone, the one that we're expecting to have a stainless steel design. The slimmer bezels is probably going to be upwards of $1,000. So if you're looking for something in that high end in terms of a premium design, you're going to be getting a good deal here at probably $300 to $400 less than the iPhone. And then that comes down to, do you want Android? Do you want iOS? It all comes down to that. Another question coming in here, do you see Essential coming out with more devices? That's a very good question. So Essential is actually coming out with a home device that runs an OS called Ambient OS. It taps into your home. It'll bring together Google Assistant, Alexa, the Essential Assistant that they're working on to control appliances in your house, play music, do tasks for you with voice similar to a HomePod, a Google Home, or an Amazon Alexa. Now, I want to show you more of the interface here because we have some people asking if there's any special sauce here. And so, again, there is no special sauce other than the wallpapers, I would say. And I am a fan of the wallpapers. And you can see that people are asking if the notch affects your usage. No, it really doesn't. You can see that they hide it well through the bezel. But even when you're using an app that doesn't hide it, something that's not optimized, you really can't tell. Your eyes get used to it. And I really don't think it's a big deal. There were people talking about it before this came out. How is the notch going to affect the phone? It really has absolutely not affected the phone. Now, a couple other things that I've learned while using this phone is that, and let's zoom out here to get a closer view at the back of the phone and the front of the phone. If we can just zoom out here. You can see the ceramic phones and the camera here. The Sprint service, I really don't like Sprint. I've had some dropped calls. I had some issues where areas, I was at the beach the other day and I was not able to connect to Sprint service. When I popped in a T-Mobile SIM into the other Essential phone was a bit better. When I compared it to Verizon on my iPhone, Verizon was the best of the three in terms of comparing the bars and the call quality in that area. So the cool thing about this, though, is that even though it's a Sprint exclusive, you can buy an unlocked version from Essential's website or through other distribution partners like Amazon and Best Buy and put in any SIM card you want. So if you're a fan of Sprint service, you live somewhere where Sprint service works really well, that's great. It doesn't for me, so you might want to get it on a different carrier or pop in a SIM card from another carrier. And obviously this, because it's unlocked, it's going to work outside the United States, all sorts of stuff like that. So Sprint, the exclusivity agreement, is one big drawback for me, but I'm glad that you're able to pop in a SIM card from other carriers. Now, you're probably asking, why is it bad that it's exclusive if you can pop in a SIM card from other carriers? That's because the leasing plans are only work through Sprint. So you can get this phone for, I believe, between $15 and $17 a month instead of shelling out $700 from the beginning, unlocked through Sprint. That's the exclusivity arrangement, being able to buy it at a cheaper leasing program and being able to tap on the cost of the 4K camera as well. Other questions coming in here. I have a Samsung Edge currently, but I've been on the wait list for the Essential and need to decide whether to purchase it or not. That's a good question. And you also have to keep in mind that this is smartphone season. You have the LG V30, their first OLED display phone, coming out in a few weeks. You have the Samsung Note 8, which is going to be announced at Unpacked next week. So there's lots of Android phones, not to mention the iPhone 8 hitting the market over the course of the next month. So what you're going to want to do is you might want to wait. You might want to compare all the phones when you see when they come out. You want to read the rumors. But if you're looking for a plain as plain Android phone, something that's really core to the basics, that has that next generation design, these really premium materials, I think the Essential, the first one, is a great starting point. And because it runs core Android, you're going to get the software updates on a really consistent basis. In fact, this test unit actually got a software update this morning to add that HDR camera functionality that it's not shipping with, which I talked about earlier. So they are promising software updates on a really fast scale, and they're promising new accessories every few months, starting with this camera accessory, then there's going to be this wireless charging dock. So this phone is going to get better over time, and hopefully it's going to reach its potential when it gets that AI-infused software being able to work for you, hopefully not in the too distant future, and that's what they're calling the ambient OS that works on the home device. Another question coming in here, and yes, to clarify, to answer this question, does not have a customized UI. There are some custom wallpapers here, but this is the same exact Android interface you're going to get on a Google Pixel, the Google phone that came out last year. Another question coming in here. Other phones don't need extra hardware for 4K. Why does this one? Okay, so that's a very good question. To clarify, this is not extra hardware for 4K. This is extra hardware for 360-degree photography. So you put this thing on the back, you take a picture or video, and then after you finish the picture or video, you can spin it around with your finger, and you can actually go through the photo. And I want to demo this again so you can see that. So let me jump into the camera. See the picture that we took, and you can see, and let's zoom into the monitor to take a closer look at this. Let's see if it can tilt too. So you can see here that you have the full 360-degree photo, and if you turn it back to portrait, you can sort of zoom in and take a closer look, spin the thing around. So that's what the camera attachment is for, to be able to take that 360-degree photo. And the way it does that is that there's lenses on the back and the front, and the lenses, you know, they tilt up and they tilt with the as you move the phone around, so you can get a really good look at what's around you at a 360-degree angle. Now, comparing this to the iPhone 8, a lot of our viewers here on Gadgets with Gurman really are iPhone fans. They love the iPhone. A lot of people also love Android, but the iPhone is what all the talk has been lately. And like I said, like we've reported, the new iPhone is going to be very similar to this. I was talking to someone at Apple yesterday about this phone, and the takeaway was that the iPhone 8 is going to be very similar to this phone in terms of the design. The notch is going to be a bit bigger at the top on the iPhone 8, but this is basically getting a preview of what the new iPhone is going to be, but running Android. And this comes back to the early debate. Are you Android or iOS? If you're in the iPhone ecosystem and you're willing to shell out the extra $300 and $400 that the iPhone 8 is going to cost over this phone, you probably want to wait for that. But if you're deep in the Android ecosystem, you want to support this independent company, you like this design, you want it now, this is a really cool option for you. I think that at $700, that's a really good price compared to what the S8 and the S8 Plus cost, some of the other phones on the market. And I've really enjoyed using this phone. The screen looks really great, even though it's LCD, not OLED. The colors are really bright. The apps all work. The notch hasn't been a problem. But I wish the camera had better functionality. I wish there was a built-in panorama mode. I wish the pictures looked a little bit better. I wish it had the bokeh, depth sensing effect that the iPhone 7 Plus has, and many other Android phones and Huawei phones have at this point. I wish it wasn't a Sprint exclusive. But what you're getting here for $700 is titanium edges, a ceramic back, something that works well, something that works fast, expandability, and promised updates over time. If you're in the Android ecosystem, you want something premium, and you're willing to wait for this phone to get better, I don't think you're going to find a much better option on the market today. But that doesn't count the other phones like the Samsung Note 8, the Google Pixel 2, the iPhone 8 coming out soon. But this phone's going to get better over time, and I think that's a really compelling offering.